I'm Sam.
And I'm Andrew.
And we're MB Board Gaming. And today we do not have a box to show you, but we're going to be reviewing Disney's Lorcana, the trading card game, which is published by Ravensburger and designed by, Ryan Miller and Steve Warner. So Andrew is going to show us how to play, and we'll be back for our final thoughts.
Okay, so I have Lorcana here set up. This is going to be obviously just the perspective from one player, but you'll be going up head to head typically with somebody else. I believe that there's also a way for you to include like 3 or up to like 6 players or something like that. So there is ways for you to play with more than 2 players, although I believe the main way here is going to be a head-to-head play. So if you're not familiar with Disney Lorcana, this is the new big Disney trading card game. And how this game is going to work is that you are going to take turns going back and forth until a player achieves 20 lore. And the way you're going to be doing that is going to be through a variety of different actions, but the main thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be turning cards from your hand into ink and then using that ink to play cards. It could be characters, it could be taking different actions or items, singing different Disney songs in order to potentially challenge and defeat other Disney characters, as well as questing in order to gain lore that will get you to 20 points. Okay, so I'm just using the starter deck here that we have. We just have the 2 starter decks as of right now. So let me just jump in and show you how a round is going to work. So at the very beginning, every player is going to get a hand of 7 cards. And the cards are going to be, like I said, different characters. You're also going to have action cards as well as potential song cards. I don't have any here. But what you're going to be looking at is going to be these symbols up here in the top left-hand corners of the card. That is going to be the cost of the card. If it has that thicker gold ring around it, it means it's an inkwell card, and that means the card can be turned into ink. If it's like this Mickey card here where it just has the gold hexagon around it, that card cannot be put in your inkwell and used as ink. Okay? And remember, ink is what you're going to be using in order to pay for the cards that you want to play in the game. So when you get your first hand of 7 cards, you can alter your starting hand, right? So if you get a bad draw and maybe you don't have a lot of inkwell cards, or maybe you have a lot of really expensive cards, you can discard some of these cards to the bottom of your deck and draw back up to your starting hand of 7. Then once you've done that and you've decided, okay, this is my deck, this is my hand, I don't want to alter it, or I do want to alter it, then you're going to determine who the first player is. Now, you can do this randomly by flipping into coin or rolling a dice, that kind of stuff. And what you're going to be doing is on your turn, you are going to do what's called ready, set, draw. However, you will not draw a card if you are the first player. So if you're the very first player taking the very first turn, you will not do this on your turn. And what you're going to do on your turn is, and I'll talk a little bit about what ready, set, draw is once we have some cards out here, is that you're going to look at your hand and you can always add one inkwell card to your inkwell here. Okay, so looking at my hand, I might really want to, I want to get rid of one of these cards. I might be like, well, to call super expensive, I don't want to hang on to that for a while. I can't do it with Mickey. So maybe I got a lot of 1s here. Let's go ahead and turn Flounder into an ink. Okay, so I'm going to put him in my inkwell like so. And then I'm going to be able to spend ink in order to play cards. And so let's say I wanted to play Captain Hook here. Okay, I would turn my inkwell to exert it and spend it, and then I would place Captain Hook here. Now I have him staggered for a reason, because in this game, when you play a character card, they are not active. You cannot use them in the same turn. Typically, I should say, you cannot use them in the same turn that they're played. The reason why is because their ink has to dry. Okay, so his ink has to dry before he can quest or challenge or anything like that. Now, once I've spent my ink and I've played my card and I can't do anything else in my turn, I would then be done and the next player would go. Now, on my next turn, Captain Hook, I'd be able to ready, set, draw, right? So I'm going to ready him. I'm going to set my ink back up and I'm going to draw my new card here. And I'll do the same thing. Now, since I have a couple cards, I'll actually be able to do something. So I might be like, okay, well, I'm going to, maybe I don't want to, I can't use that, but I can use Smash. I don't want Smash. I'm going to put it in my inkwell. Now I have 2 cards that I can play. So I might play this action card here called Develop Your Brain. So this is going to cost 1 ink. So I'll turn 1 ink to exert it. And I'll be able to play this action card. Now, action cards won't stay out. I'll discard them after I use them. But this one here lets me look at the top 2 cards of my deck. And I'll put one of them into my hand and the other at the bottom of my deck. So I'll take a look at the 2 cards I get and decide which one I want. Okay, well, let's say maybe I want to get a song. So I'm going to put this Captain Hook on the bottom of my deck. And I'll keep going. I have 1 more ink. So maybe I'll take this action. I'll spend my other ink to deal 2 damage to one of my opponent's characters. So I can spend that ink to do that action. And I'm going to, my opponent will also have these little damage markers that they're going to be able to use, but this will allow me to do damage to my opponents. Now, the actions that my characters can take are going to be challenge or quest, right? So challenge is the way that you're going to fight somebody on your opponent's board. And when you look at the cards, I'll show you here Takaz for an example. Taka here, he has a cost of 6, which we've already talked about. But looking at the cards, you're going to see these 2 numbers here. You're going to have this 5 in the circle, and that's going to be the strength of the card. And the one here in the shield is the resistance. The resistance is how much damage the character can take before they are repelled and sent to the discard pile. Okay? And then they'll sometimes have special effects. So like this one says that during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore. And also, and then you're going to see these little diamonds here, and this is how much lore the character gets when they quest. So when I have these characters out here, depending on what I choose to do, I will exert them by turning them sideways. And let's say I'm questing. If I'm questing, I'll gain that much lore and diamonds here on my little track. So if I had Taka out there, I would gain 2 lore. Now, Captain Hook only has 1 lore. So he would only get 1 if I were to quest. But if we take a look at Captain Hook, he has an ability called Challenger, which means I get +2 when challenging a character. So my strength is only 1. I would actually get a +2 to my strength when I attack somebody. Now, when you challenge somebody, you're going to do damage based on the amount of strength that you have. But your character is also going to take damage based on the strength of the character that you're attacking. So this number doesn't block any damage. It just tells you how much damage you could take. So you'll want to keep that in mind when you're deciding who you want to challenge and when. So yes, Captain Hook is not very strong if he's being attacked, but when he attacks somebody else, he gets a +2 challenge. So you're going to be making those kinds of decisions for each of your characters and what you're doing. And I'll show you one other thing here too, is that you're going to see cards like this, where you're going to be able to sing. This is an action card, but it's a song. And what's special about these songs cards is that you can, instead of spending ink from your inkwell to activate these songs, you can actually exert a character that you have that's active. You can turn them sideways. Sometimes you have to spend ink and exert a character in order to do some of these actions. But for this song, all you have to do is if there's a character with a cost of 2 or more, then you can turn them to sing this song for free. So I don't have to worry about spending any of my ink. If I had a character of a cost 2 or higher, they would be able to be exerted to play this card for free. And so you're going to have those song cards. They're also going to be, I'll show you real quickly, there's something called Shift, where if you play a character that you'll see that you can have multiple characters with the same name but like a different title, right? So you could have a basic Aurora like this, but then you're also maybe later on going to, let's see if I can find her real quick, you're going to have, not that one, give me 1 second, I'm going to find her real fast. Probably going to be the last card I find. That's usually how it works when you do this kind of stuff, right? The card that you're looking for is always the last one. And nope, not that one. Let's see if I can find her. This one here. Okay. So as you can see here on this Aurora, she's the Dreaming Guardian. She has this Shift 3. So what this means is that if I have a character in play that has the same name, see, they're both named Aurora, right? But they're going to have different titles. So this is the Briar Rose, and this one is the Dreaming Guardian. And what I can do is instead of paying, this is a glistening little card, like a holographic, whatever you want to call it. Instead of paying that 5 inkwell for the card, I can actually pay 3 since I have this one out. And I don't have to pay that full amount. So when I shift, what I'm going to do is I'll pay the 3 ink on top of the original Aurora. Now, any damage that's on that original Aurora that I have will then transition to this new character. However, this means that I can play this character the same turn that I put her out. So when I play this character out, I don't have to wait for her to dry. I can immediately quest or challenge with her and take advantage of any new abilities that she has. So that's going to be something you're going to be doing in the game as well with that shift ability. And that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be going back and forth, attacking one another, trying to make sure that they don't get to the 20 lore before you. And you're going to be, building up this inkwell, building up your characters and questing, and whoever's the first to 20 is going to win the game. And that's pretty much all there is with Disney Lorcana. So let's go ahead and take it back up top and tell you what we think.
All right, and we are back. So we are going to jump right in to our rubric. Mm-hmm. Actually, before that, this is like a game that we kind of just got on a whim.
Yeah, you kind of talked us into this because we were at Gen Con when this came out, and it was crazy. And I was always in that, like, I have no interest in a trading card game. We did the Pokemon review. We have a little bit of experience with trading card games. I played Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid. Did you play any kind of games like that as a kid? Trading card games?
I just had Pokemon cards, right. But I didn't really play with them. It was more like a collector's thing. Yeah.
There was a time when I was really big into Yu-Gi-Oh with my brother when I was a kid, and so so yeah. Other than that, and then the Pokemon review because we had collected them and not really played them as kids. That's kind of our exposure to TCGs. We never played like Magic the Gathering, so that's where our background kind of comes in when it comes to these trading card games or collectible card games, right? And so keep that in mind as we're going through this, because that's kind of what I'm comparing them to in my head. Just because I haven't played Magic the Gathering. But to be fair, that one's kind of probably the most intimidating right now because I don't really even know where a good jumping in point is. Yeah. And this one, with it being so new, it's easy to just get a couple starter packs and that kind of stuff. Right. So with that little disclaimer, we can kind of jump right in. We can talk about production. It's literally just cards, obviously. So if you're familiar with getting a starter deck of any kind of trading card game, you're going to get like the little paper play mat, which I showed, which isn't that great. But I mean, when we're talking about production, it's just cards, right? So mostly talking about the graphic design and the art on the cards. As far as component quality, I think the art is really cool. It comes from like the original. I don't know if it's not stills from the movies, but it looks like original artwork. It might be from the movies, but it doesn't look like a picture from the movies kind of thing.
It looks like their own art that they kind of came up with, at least from what I've seen. I like that they didn't really mess with that too much. It seems like the original Disney.
It gives you a very Disney feel to it, right? I think graphic design, the icons are pretty easy to understand, the lore and the exerting, and just the cost and what's an inkwell card and what's not kind of thing. Even though I think it seemed like maybe a little bit of confusion there on what cards an inkwell and what's not. I thought it was pretty clear, but it does seem like that could cause a little bit of confusion maybe for some people the first play or two.
Yeah, I think it's like, they look very similar, although obviously the inkwell is thicker,
gold
like
rim.
yeah, gold rim. So I think it can be maybe if you just look at real fast, because I did that where I was like, oh, that's an ink card. Like that's not the right one. So
right. But overall, I think the graphic design is pretty nice on the card. I mean,
mm-hmm.
knowing the strength and the resistance is pretty easy to follow, I think, as
Right.
far as graphic design. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the artwork was beautiful. I think it was very like straightforward too, as far as like, the like what you do on each card. Like they had like cute little quotes on it,
Right.
from movies and um the different characters. So I thought that was just like a cool touch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So looking at preparation, being able to set the game up, tear it down, how easy or difficult is it to teach? Now they have an app which I think is actually pretty nice. So we obviously just went through the little paper rule book that comes with the starter sets, which is all we got. We just got the original starter sets. We got 2 of them. We haven't dabbled in the newest, like Firstborn, whatever that is.
Yeah,
It can't be Blood. It's Disney. It's probably Firstborn or something.
Probably.
And then they have a new one that's coming out, I think, in a month.
Yeah.
So some new sets that are coming out. But anyway, so getting into like the whole, obviously setup and teardown is easy. You're just shuffling a deck of cards, you're ready to go. You set your little markers to 0, have your little damage markers out there, easy peasy. The main thing here is with how easy or difficult is it to teach. It's a pretty simple teach, I think. The rule book is fine. I do like getting the app. When I went through the app, and sometimes I'll reference the app a little bit better because I think it has a little bit more in-depth about certain things and easier to find. So using the app seemed very helpful, especially I think you can even look and see like some of the different cards and what they do, just to kind of understand. So I like the app in that sense. So that was nice. So if somebody does want that little extra info, they can go and use that, and it's more accessible than keeping around that little flimsy paper rule book thing, right? But I think overall the teach is pretty quick, right? Like, hey, you have 7 hands on your turn. You can play a card for your inkwell, and then you can spend that ink to do things like putting out characters, action cards, shifting, that kind of stuff. Shifting can be a little bit weird when it comes to the rules. I think that's the only one that might get a little bit weird, is like, oh, okay, you got to have a character that's the same name and be able to shift, and you can pay a reduced cost to put them out, and they're automatically active, right? And then you can use them to quest and whatnot. And so I think that's the only really big rule that is difficult, maybe, because
the shifting. When I played your deck, you can do the shifting, but I can't with my deck. So when we swapped,
you didn't have any shifting characters in your deck?
No. So I had no idea like what that was or how you do it.
I played your deck a few times, but I don't remember if you had shifting or not.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I'd have to double check. I had the blue and gray set, and you had the purple and gold or yellow set, right?
It was like
so those are the 2 that we have. Yeah, they have like
gold or something.
They have different. Yeah, mine's like steel and sapphire or something. So but yeah, I think overall the setup teardown, it's pretty easy to teach, I think. Obviously, just get into it, and once you play a couple rounds, like, okay, I get it, kind of thing. So jumping into gameplay, right? Mechanically, the theme is right. I'm trying to remember the theme. So you are,
drawing like, so how I remember it is like because of the inkwells, right? Like you're drawing these characters, so that's why you have to put so many cards in your inkwell. So you use the ink to then draw the character that then has to dry, so you can't use them as soon as the cards come out. There are some characters that will allow you to have different abilities, like right when you play them. It'll say, right when you play. But I think that's the whole thing of like, okay, you're playing a character to have it dry to then go questing, or are they gonna challenge and fight and like stuff like that. So that's the way I kind of think of it, is like it's like a story type of thing. Like,
I know there's like a theme loosely tied to it about going and collecting this lore, but honestly it's kind of, it's not really anything I paid too much attention to. Obviously, it's like you're going head to head kind of thing,
Right.
and competing against one another to get to 20 points first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thematically, I don't know if this game introduces a ton of new stuff. I mean, it's a Disney trading card game, right?
Mm-hmm.
The shifting is probably new in comparison to what I know of. Like if I think of evolving Pokemon, or I think about, that kind of stuff when you have a basic Pokemon that evolves into a level 1 or level 2. Same kind of concept here to when you can evolve them, except for they're out on your main board kind of thing. Or
Mm-hmm.
in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think you could tribute and summon somebody, if I remember right. So same kind of concept there.
Mm-hmm.
The ink is interesting. Like you have this currency, so it's a good give and take of like, okay, what cards do I want to keep to be able to play? Which ones do I want to turn into ink to spend later? And trying to weigh those decisions of, ooh, this is a really powerful card, but it costs 6. So it might take me a while. So do I really want to hold on to this for that long? Or do I want to just bury it and then I can get
That's
more
the
cards
tricky
out?
part, honestly. Like, I feel like if you get a hand of good cards at the beginning of the game, like that was my struggle, was like, oh, I have really good starter cards. Like, what do I want to sacrifice as my
Mm,
in my inkwell?
mm,
But yeah, there is that decision, like some meaty decisions of like, okay, which one is gonna go in the inkwell and which one am I gonna like actually play?
right.
So.
Yeah, so I think mechanically it's pretty straightforward, right? Like you're
Mhm.
going to turn a card to do a quest or a challenge, or you're going to,
Mhm.
use an item card and do its
I
ability,
feel
that
like
kind of stuff.
once you get into like the routine of it too, like I know the first like maybe like one or two times that we played, I was like, okay, so I turn this, I do that,
Right,
and then like you get into like the routine of it, like okay, ready, set, draw, and then
right.
you go along and you turn your cards and you do your abilities and like yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Like once you're playing it, you're like, oh,
right,
okay, like all the characters do different things, so that's gonna change the gameplay, obviously.
right.
But it's the same concept, and it's yeah, I feel like it's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward.
Downtime is pretty low as well. Like I could easily
Mm-hmm.
just be like, okay, I'm playing this Minkwell, I'm playing these cards.
Yeah.
Here's the song I'm doing. I'm exerting this character. Challenge, quest, whatever.
The turns are super
Yeah,
fast.
it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
We've only played this at 2. I believe you can play this with up to like 6 people.
Really?
Yeah, I believe on BGG or even on the thing it says you can play 2, or you can play 3, or you can play up to 6, I believe is what it says. But
Okay.
I don't know. I think most people probably play this as a 1v1 kind of game. So we can't really speak to anything beyond that. There is a fair amount of luck. I mean, you are drawing cards, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can mitigate that luck based on the cards that you build your deck. Now, I'm not really looking to jump all in on Lorcana, because I know that these
Mm-hmm.
trading card games can be a bit of a money sink. But I wouldn't mind just getting a few starter decks and playing
Right.
with them. And they already kind of have their own little mechanics built into those starter decks. And I'm kind of curious about what the other sets that have come out and the new set that's going to be coming out in March. I'd be kind of curious to see what they add to those abilities and mechanics, and how they're
Right.
going to kind of see how far this system can stretch and be pulled. And
Mm-hmm.
so without adding a whole lot of complexity, I think.
Right.
So I'm really curious to see about that. But obviously it's a high level of luck, right? You're shuffling cards and it's just RNG, right? What cards do I get? Hopefully I can
Mm-hmm.
play them. But that's going to come down to the composition of your decks that you build. So, and
Yeah.
thinking about that, that's where I'm at in this headspace, like with this kind of thing. I know, like as a kid, I was buying a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I was buying a lot of Pokemon cards. As an adult, I really don't want to buy a ton of Lorcana cards. I could just buy a couple starter decks, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all I really want to do. I don't want to go through and worry about the whole building out decks and put that kind of time and effort and money
Mm-hmm.
into this deck. This deck is so meta and broken. Blah blah blah. I don't care.
Yeah.
I would just be like, hey, I'm gonna grab this starter deck. You grab a
Well,
starter deck
and
and go.
I like the starter decks, and I feel like, then we even get like in the starter decks, like oh, there's some that are your color, and you
Yeah,
have
we got a
some
little
that are
booster
mine.
pack that came
Yeah,
from them, which is fine.
the little booster packs, which is cool because then we're like, oh, hey, you want to trade, and like, you know, you can
Yeah.
have your color and I'll have mine, and like,
Right.
so I mean, I like the starter packs because I feel like that's enough to play with, and like I know there's the hype everybody loves,
Right.
you know, Lorcana. And for me, it was the Disney aspect. Like
I think that was most people, was the Disney aspect.
yeah, but I was never like, you know, really into like the trading card games. And so
Right.
this was like the first one I was like, you know what, let's just try it. The first I'm not gonna well, I won't jump into that. We'll wait until we do.
Well, we can kind of jump into that now, I think, is like our
Okay.
return on investment, which
Yeah.
we didn't really buy a whole lot of stuff. And I think so. And I'll just say I didn't really have much of an expectation. You know, I've played a couple trading card games in the past.
Mhm.
It wasn't something I was super excited to be getting, but I knew you were excited. We were out on a date night at a game store just playing games. You're like, hey, let's just get a couple starter decks. I was like, really? We're going to do this? Okay.
We're going.
So we went ahead and got a couple. And I mean, I enjoyed the game. I'll say that. I did enjoy the game. It's not one that I had high expectations for. It wasn't something, but I was like, you know what? I'd buy the starter decks. I would get the 2 or 3 starter decks that come out for every set, whatever it is. And I'll definitely look at Etsy and be like, ooh, that's a cool play mat. Those would be neat.
Honestly,
those
that's
boxes
one of the
would be
first
cool.
things I looked at was like the
Upgrading
play
those
mats
things.
because I was like, I don't want the paper mat. Like I want
But it's expensive, and I don't want to spend that kind of money into this game.
But it's just like so nice, and it like looks.
So if you have that kind of income, you can upgrade and buy all these cards and everything.
Yeah.
But so I thought it was a pretty good return on investment. Again, this is not something I'm gonna. I'll let you say your thing before I give my final score and my reasonings why.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. Like I didn't have much expectations.
Right.
Like I knew that okay, it's Disney, right? Like I love any kind of like Disney game. I'm intrigued by it and I want to try it. So I kind of like I don't know. I would say I kind of had like low expectations because I had no idea like what I was going to get out of it. Right. So, and I didn't want to have too high of expectations because if it's a Disney game and I have too high of expectations and then I don't like it, I'm going to be bummed. So, yeah. So I don't know. I had kind of low expectations, but I would say that it actually exceeded for me. But it was after we had played it, like it was maybe like the second time that we played it. The first time I was like, I don't really know if I like this. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. I'm like, it's weird. Like I'm not the turning of the cards and like how the cards play off of each other. But I think it's because I didn't know my deck.
Right. You know? Yeah, I think that was the case too.
That's a big thing is you like have to know your deck. Otherwise you're just like, oh, okay, like I don't know what to do with any of these. And then some of them, you know, they play off of each other.
And they have a little bit of in the rule book, like for your starter deck, they tell you like, hey, your deck is kind of geared towards doing this.
Yeah, and I didn't even read that until like after we played the first time. So that was helpful, like in their little like rule book thing that came with it. Like, okay, this is what your deck is good at. So that was helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I like the different kinds of strategies that you put into it. I'm going to jump right into my score. So I gave Pokemon a 7.5 when we did the review. If I'm thinking about Yu-Gi-Oh, I think Yu-Gi-Oh, I really enjoyed the game. I was really into it. That is definitely kind of when I think of a trading card game, that's like my favorite trading card game. This isn't that, but I do like this more than Pokemon, so I'm going to give it a 7.7. You know, I like what Ravensburger's done. And so that kind of gave me some hope when we got it as well. I was like, hey, it is Ravensburger. I do like a lot of their games. They usually do a pretty great job with their stuff. I think I would only want to play it at 2-player. This isn't a game that I think I want to have 3 to 6 players sitting around and doing that kind of stuff. Obviously, there's a ton of replayability if you get the different starter sets and decks and whatnot, and being able to kind of mix and match who you want to play against, that kind of stuff, and trying out those different strategies. I can definitely see the depth in the building up your deck, and I think there's a lot of really cool things that could be done there. I just don't think I'm the person that's going to be putting in that kind of time and effort and investment. So I'm happy with the level that I'm at. I don't want to go any deeper. But I can definitely see some really cool depth there with the deck building. So I think there could be a lot of different kind of strategies that you can go for there. So I'm going to come in. So I'm right there at that 7.7 for this game.
Okay. I'm going to give it an 8.3. I think that maybe if we get like upgrades or something, like we get the mats and we get that stuff from Etsy, my score will probably go up just because I'm like, yeah, it's just paper, you know, and like little cardboard thingies. So it'll probably go up. But I'm going to give it an 8.3. Like I do think it's a good game. I'm actually interested in playing more decks, like because I want to like explore that. And I feel like once you play like your same deck over and over again, you're kind of like, oh, I want to play another one. So when we swapped decks, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, you know, but yeah.
I would be cool with getting a few just the starter decks. That's what I'd be fine with.
Yeah, we don't
buy
need
a bunch of booster
the giant box with like they had at the board game store like a giant box like it was like $175. I'm like, I don't need that. Like just give me the starter packs.
Yeah, so that's where we're gonna fall here with Disney Lorcana. A pleasant surprise, I would say, for both of us. Just not one that we're totally invested in. I'm kind of curious to hear from people that watch this video. You know, let us know what you think of trading card games. Are you one that goes all in and buys those booster decks or booster packs and really likes to create your own deck? Or do you like to kind of just get your feet wet with those starter decks and just be happy with that point? And if you've played Lorcana, how does this one kind of line up with others that you've played, whether it be Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever ones are out there? So and just let us know.
Starter packs, like which ones are your favorite? If you've tried like all of them, like which ones are your favorite? And then that way we can try them out.
Yeah, sounds good. But yeah, let us know. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Bye.